So for episode 3, very Nace-centric episode for season 4, right off the bat. I mean, I guess we could have figured that considering the ending of episode 2, but we really hit the ground running, which was interesting.
This was a packed episode, and I was thinking about this morning, and I might be getting ahead of myself, but I don't know. This we're technically like a fourth of the way through this season, and this episode felt like a conclusion of a prologue. Like these
Mm.
three episodes kind of were um a like a chapter of the story where like the premiere really dealt with the angst of Nancy and Ace, and then by the end, she tells him about the curse. Episode 2 was Nancy not really wanting to concede, Ace's desperate pleas to like we need to do the curse. Like she was very fearful of doing that, and then they got to a place where they in episode 3 are doing that. They're actively trying to break the curse, and then I won't jump ahead to the end of this episode, but it felt like very much a conclusion. And we're going to get, I don't know if it's going to be a collection of 3 episodes 4 times. I don't know. This is just me as a viewer, like, ooh, look at this. But it felt like we're at a turning point where we're going to, we didn't get what we expected. And now we're going to get, Hot Lobster Man and other things. And it's going to, anyway, I got way ahead of myself, but I just want to throw that out there because I didn't want to forget about it. And okay.
No, I agree with you totally. And I feel like they addressed things so head on at the beginning, and that was a pleasant surprise because these shows tend to build towards things. But no, we came off the like really hot season 3 finale right into a really hot beginning for season 4, right into the story. Everything was there. And of course, then we build up, we reach that boiling point, and then we cool down. And I agree with you totally. I think after these 3 episodes, we're going to cool down a little bit. Um, and yeah, we will get into the actual events of what happened. But I do agree. I feel like that's where the arc's going. And definitely one of the most emotionally traumatic episodes of Nancy in quite some time.
Mm. Yes, I agree. The delving into the curse was, I thought the handling of it for, how they did the plot twist was very interesting in hindsight, because I did watch it before it aired, then I watched it when it aired. And I was like, I should have saw that coming. Don't know why I didn't see that coming. I think because the way that they set it up, it seems like they have a lot of obstacles with the doll that they need. And then when all hope is lost, then Nancy remembers something, and there should be another doll. And the way that we get to the doll is so easy. And the way we get the flowers is so easy. So like by the time they do the ritual, I was like, why did I feel safe and secure? I even heard the needle drop, and yet I still felt a little safe and secure.
I know the whole time I'm watching it and I'm like, I'm on board. I'm like, ooh, oh, okay. This is going to be easier than I thought it was. But the whole time I'm like, it's easier than I thought it was. Like, why are they doing this in episode 3? This feels very much like an episode 10
Yeah.
situation. Like, I wasn't like, this show is very much they kind of get what they want, but it doesn't go their way. But I was like, I didn't care at this point. I was like, I'm on board. Do what you want. Like, if it's easy, you know me. I was ready for the George and Best kiss to set Odette free. I was like, let's just get on with it. I'm like, I'm fine. I don't need it all to make sense. Just do it. But I did not expect Temperance to have been 8,000 steps ahead of them.
Mm-hmm. And they really did well leading you down that garden path, because like I think and Kennedy and Alex's performances were so good, because they were like almost giddy teary at one point as well when they thought everything was going the right. Quick, let's go! And Kennedy portrayed it with such a like emotion in her face. And then when they ran into Carson on the way out, I can't stay, gotta go do something, and then ran off. It was so humorous and giddy. And then it wasn't until afterwards we got halfway through and I was like, this is too easy. Something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. Wow. That high. We had quite the fall afterwards.
Yeah, well, see, I didn't think that the spell would work. I just didn't think it would go so disastrously wrong.
Yeah.
Like I just figured, we'd be internally disappointed, not Nancy nearly dies. Like that wasn't what I was prepared for. I think, okay, what I love about this setup that they did though was that it brought Nancy's fear over Ace, which was based on a dream, full circle by having Ace have the same fear, but having actually experienced it. which I love that. I love that. Like she can push past her fear because she witnessed it, but she witnessed it in a simulated format. He literally witnessed her nearly dying and them not being able to stabilize her heart. So like he is definitely like, I love you. I like we cannot be together. It's
They
not worth.
switched
Yeah,
perspectives.
they switched perspectives, and they switched perspectives in a way that grounded it in reality and made the stakes at where they needed to be because they became realistic. It wasn't just, we don't know what Temperance is doing. We absolutely do know what Temperance is doing now.
Mm-hmm. And the fact they tied it into Carson's arc as well, because when Carson gave her that Nancy that speech about you could have died, you can't do this anymore.
Which, by the way, but not to interrupt you, but Scott Wolf showed up. Like this was an
Incredible
episode for him. Okay, continue.
Without a doubt. And I feel like that really helps because usually when they do these like episodic arcs, you're like, okay, why is this out of nowhere? But no, they came together really, really well because when he warned Nancy off that, it looked like it had set in. It looked like it was going to be Nancy was like, no, you're right. We can't do this again. I can't do this to my dad who knows all too well about grief. But then it cut to the next scene and she was like, I'm looking up how to break it again. So then it had to be S that did it. I thought that was really well done, especially like you said, Sabrina, it mirrored everything that happened. It was incredible.
And she looked so tired though. And I was like, is that because she's freshly out of the hospital? Or did the curse change in some way? Because there was something about, unless she just was pulling an all-nighter and that's why she looked incredibly
Yeah, I thought it was
sleepy.
like adrenaline and exhaustion and like endorphins, all of the things just mixing together. The thing about this episode is I am a known Kennedy McMahon stan, and I constantly talk about her performances. If I were to rank my favorite performances of her, like the top 5, I think 3 of them would have been in this episode alone. Because there were just so many moments where I was like, where the Emmys, are they not watching? Like where, like like the freaking hospital bed scene, the way she was reacting to Carson, like just she was so present and her eyes shifting. I can't even go on from there because it was like so heartbreaking. And then just the desperation in her pleading with Ace and I know what it's like to kiss you now was like a gut punch. Just that her delivery of that line, I was like, "Ooh, whoever wrote that, like, I want to give you a high five because it was amazing." And she just slaughtered it in the best way. I can't think of the other, like, there were so many moments where Kennedy was just like giving a masterclass yet again. Like, Kennedy, knock it off. Like, it's an embarrassment of riches.
She's literally spent this whole season on the verge of tears. I really mean that. When she first saw S in the premiere episode and they reunited for that first time in 5 weeks, she looked like she was about to break down. Now, last night, even when she was like giddy, tired, running on adrenaline, trying to get the cure or the curse broken, still looked like she was on the verge of tears. And then that did lead to the big breakdown. Just that subtle, but also like loud performance, the way she can switch it, it's constantly adding to the stakes of the storyline because this is going to be the most important story they tell. And even if they do cool off now, you felt it right out of the gate. And I do feel a large part of that has been just her flawless performance over these last 3 episodes.
I feel like even if you don't watch the show, if you watch this episode, like I dare you not to be moved by this story because like whether you're on board or not, like the way that it was crafted, like and Kennedy and Alec, like I don't know, it all just like even if you like I know we're gonna get into some stuff because I know Sabrina has thoughts, not to call you out, but like I know we need to get into the meat and potatoes. But just like on the praising portion of this, like I think this episode, like it was just moving, whether you were on board or not. Like if you're not a fan of them or not, I'm like, you have to admit that they were packing some punches and they were right hooking me and just fighting for my life to not feel emotional.
It is really good though. I think really what sold this episode was the acting in it. Like, I mean, really and truly, there are just so many. It's not just the emotional beats. It is also, as an emotional, as in with teary and more heartbreaking. There's heartbreaking things going on, but also the amount of balance that Kennedy has to do between the hopefulness and the devastation and I think for me, my favorite acting moment for her this episode, outside of the ending Nace scene, is in the hospital when she's talking to Carson, and she says, "You don't understand." And immediately her father is like, "What we're not going to do is that." Like, because you know that I lost your mom. And I like that entire scene because it parallels her relationship with Ace to her dad's relationship with her mom and the deep well of love there. And for her as a person to know that that was there. And so he does understand how you feel. Like, and that was his wife. She was your mom, but that's his wife. And he lost her. And so he does know what that's like. He doesn't want her to go through that, but he also doesn't want to go through losing his daughter like he lost his wife. And I'm just like, can we, like, you're right, Reed, like, where are the Emmys? Are we submitting? Like, wake them up, like wake up the judging panel, because it's necessary. I think that this Kennedy McMahon is a tour de force. She was not breathing in the scene in which she remembered. Nancy remembers that what the Greek word means, that it's plural, and that there's another doll. And I was like, "Girl, breathe, breathe." The hope is choking you. And she was like, and she's out of breath, and she's hopeful, and it was just, you don't see Nancy like that a lot. Like she generally she's a logical, realistic person, and so there are only a few moments I think in the series in which her desperation is at a high. It reminded me as a hopeful interpretation of what happened with George when she's just running through the historical society looking for the blanket. She just runs in with a hope and a prayer and throws the shout over her friend because she doesn't want to lose her. Like, she has such a deep well of connection to everyone that she loves, and she doesn't want to see them lost to her. But also, if she has the ability to have the life she wants, she's going to go for it. And I just think that is beautiful. Are we still in the praise portion? I don't know if I should go from here.
We can pivot.
Okay. My lone issue with the Nace is there's this thing that is done in television shows and sometimes in movies where the way that we get to an emotional resonance is by expediting the process of intimacy. You can do that through like physicality, where we're touching a lot, even though there's not really a basis for the relationship, because they touch so much, you start feeling the emotional connection for them, even if the writing isn't quite there yet. So with Nace, it was like there's a lot of vulnerability. There was a lot of hopefulness, but those stories were just not hitting for me. Like, I think it's adorable that he has loved her since she set off the volcano when she was 15 and he was a senior, so I'm assuming 17. I think bringing that back in the episode when she's painting the sigil on him really worked. I just feel like I wanted these things earlier. Like, I wanted their past connections to come up more throughout the series. So them being put in this episode right before they're about to break them up again didn't gel for me. Same with I know everyone online loved I want to go to Paris for our first date. And I want to go to like the hot air balloon. And I was like, can we get a burger first, y'all? I don't want to go on the honeymoon first. I don't. I want to like really live in a grounded reality for them, because what it gives is fantasy. Yeah. And I don't want fantasy.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you that as a series, when we're watching this, we're kind of like, it felt, this is a strong word, and I don't know if I completely mean it. It felt kind of like retcon to be like, to deliver all that information, even though people have said that he's liked her since high school, but we haven't really seen it in the text completely. Like, it's not a thing we're reminded of constantly, but we finally got the like canon confirmation. But to my point previously, to like where I was like, if you didn't watch the show and you just watched this episode, it felt like it told like a complete love story where like you really don't need to know anything about their history because they told you about it. We got the stakes of their love, of their like, what if we go to Paris and like all that stuff, and then we get the like full circle, like dashed hopes, like tragic love story. Like, we get that in one singular episode. But you're right, as like a full like in the fourth season, like this material we're getting quickly. Like, we didn't really get to see them be happy. It would have been nice to have seen that kind of like on a lower scale, like a Paris moment like just in town, like on a coffee date where they're like connecting outside of their work. But yeah, so like for me, like it's like two sides of a coin. It's like, but also like it worked, but also I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. It's
Yeah.
complicated.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I feel like this episode was very much like Ness the movie, just with the exception it didn't have the final reunion arc. It really did.
Nace the movie. Am I using that for the thumbnail?
You're
Probably.
welcome to it. But honestly, really, it had all the beats of the love story, just with at the final reunion. It didn't have the happy ending, and I know we're obviously going to get that towards the end of the season. And as that, I bought in, as the scenes I bought in the performances I bought in. But I know what you mean overall as an arc. I just wish we weren't getting it this soon, and that it all didn't have to be contained to this one episode. Because, like Reed said, it does feel like they're going to start tallying it in quarters. They've reached their boiling point, and now they're going to cool down. So they had to shoehorn all of that into one 40-minute episode. And don't get me wrong, the content was giving, but as a whole,
It gave a lot.
it gave a lot. Yes, it did. And but as a whole, I feel like maybe we could have had a bit more before now, but I know they didn't know it was their final season, so maybe they've had to stick it all and make it a little more episodic to get all the information in there. But just before we move on from the performances element, also Alex's performance in the final scene, the pipe,
Okay, yeah.
how my goodness,
what gave him the right? Adorable. I have no words. When I told you guys my physical reaction, it was I don't know. I love Ace so much, and Alex was just this whole episode was he really like I feel like Ace he's had a lot to do, but like this episode I was like, oh, okay, we're leaving it all on the table. Alex was really there, and the intimacy between them I felt like really worked. He really showed up with them, and like you never have to worry about Kennedy. Like she's always going to be there, and you don't have to worry about Alex either. But like just getting that intimacy finally. The painting scene you mentioned, Sabrina, was I couldn't look away. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I shouldn't be watching, but like, ooh.
I felt the exact same. It was the tension. I was like, I feel like this is a private moment. Can I close the door? Should I leave? Like, what is like it just is very, very intimate.
Okay, I put my mug down, and you know that's when I'm about to start saying something. I wasn't planning on saying this, but the thing that I noticed with this scene is, and I don't know, I could be wrong, but I'm going to bring it up and I'll find out if I'm wrong. What I like about the show is that they don't really objectify Nick and Ace. So when we get these scenes where Nancy's like, take your shirt off, it feels like, whoa. And I don't think Ace was objectified in that scene. I don't think Alex was objectified. It was a moment of intimacy that they have never had as characters. Realistically, like she's had that in her trauma dream sequence from Temperance. But that scene made me think like, I really appreciate this show for one, portraying these two men. Do I say this in every episode? Just kings. And then they're not like presented to any one viewer gaze. Like we're not meant to objectify these men. Like they are, and that's leaps and bounds from where the CW was. Where like it felt like it was every episode somebody needed to have a shirtless scene just because it was the CW. I'm not going to name names. We all have examples going through our heads right now, I'm sure. But yeah, like that was just something that I thought of watching that scene. I was like, we don't get these scenes often just because, and I don't know how important it was to the script that she needs to paint directly onto his chest, but I think it was for the intimacy, and it wasn't to objectify him either. I don't know. It made me think a lot of things, and that was one thing that I thought, and I really appreciated it about the show.
But did he call it? He called it a Nancy mark, right? And the way that you don't do it on the nose is it didn't have to be on his heart, but it was like right in the middle of his chest. And so it's like, and then the way it's shot too, it's not objectifying, like you said. It is very much about the two of them. It is not about him being shirtless. It's about them doing what they must in order to be together and what it would be like to be together and having like you have the like you said whoa moment when she says take your shirt off, but then she immediately is like, oh, I meant like because I have to put the thing on. Like it's supposed to be, she was moved by what he had to say about having been in love with her for that long. And I think isn't that the scene he also admits to have been jealous of? Did
He
he say
said
Park?
Park. He
He's
said
Hmm.
jealous,
Park and Gil.
which is interesting because if he had loved her since he was 17 years old, he was never jealous of Nick or Owen. Like that
Nick
is
and him are buds. I don't think he's.
no in the beginning though. I wonder if it was more so feeling like what is about Park in Gil
But we
that
knew
made
he
him
was jealous
jealous.
of Park. Like the
We
tension in that
did.
room, that was
Hmm.
like, you're not being subtle, any of you in this room.
We did, but I because we don't get a lot of like introspective moments with
Yeah,
Ace, I'm always latching onto them because I want to know how his brain works.
yeah,
And it does very like, especially because when we do learn about him, like you learn a lot about his insecurities. Like obviously we
mhm.
know a lot about his goofiness and his loves and the fact that he likes hacking and he has like odd things that he enjoys. But like it's just nice to get like emotional beats for him and vulnerability. And that was a very vulnerable scene. This is why I said I didn't dislike the Nace. There were just portions
Yeah.
of it where I was like, I see what you're doing there, and I feel like we could have sprinkled some of this in through the past 3 seasons. And
But
that's it.
circling back to Alex's performance, I think the second scene that really made me melt from his performance is when, in the scene where she's like, describing the Paris fantasy, the way he looks at her, I was like, Alex, please stop.
It's like butter. He's just it's
Stop.
just
But don't stop, but like stop.
he
He
really showed up for this episode. Like he's really fantastic in it
was incredible.
through the entire episode. I think like they're matched together really well in that last scene.
Hmm.
Like
Mhm.
I understand both of their perspectives.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly
He
get
didn't
it.
want to say any of that the same way that she didn't want to say any of that in the, was it season 3 finale when she was
Mhm.
mean to him because out of necessity, I guess. I don't know.
And
It's kind of like the same thing, but he's kind of like, I'm where you're at now. I don't want to be saying this, but my God, those, it's so like multi-layered, that whole discussion, that I'm like, I don't, I haven't, I'm everywhere. I'm ping-ponging across between the distance between them.
And bless him, the way he said at the end that really drove that home. Like, I can't stay here. It's too painful. And then he just walked off. It really did come across because he knew he didn't want to be anywhere else but with her, but he couldn't anymore. He had to do what he deemed to be the bigger thing so that she could live a long, happy life and, well, long life with even without him in it. But like, it was used to us being so like chill and calm and collected about everything. And I think that's why him and Nancy worked. I always call them two parallel forces, but now they're colliding. And this is something he's really passionate about. So we're getting to see him in this light for the first time. And it's a whole new experience. And I do agree with what you guys are saying. I know what you mean. We've commended the Nest for being so subtle for 3 years, but now that we've been thrown into it, we're running out of time. You almost wish it wasn't quite as subtle so that we could have gotten a little bit more leading up to it. But like, the montage when they were talking about the first time, or no, wait, the first kiss, and then
The
all the
kiss.
throwbacks to everything. I said I wanted a first kiss, and wow, did I get one? That was an
That
incredible
was
scene.
the first kiss that we don't get from, like, I remember like years ago, like when we were teenagers, like first kisses on TV shows were like a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and it doesn't feel like they're a big deal anymore. And that was like, that was big stuff. And it
Mm-hmm.
was a good kiss, like as far as moments are concerned and chemistry and like intimacy. I was like, again, I was kind of like, okay, should I be here for this?
It was very West Allen, actually,
Mm-hmm.
with how they did it. I even the mentioning of I know you had this kiss before, but this is the first time. It's the first kiss for me, and it being very serious about it. Like Ace was like, "This is my first kiss with you," and they gave him like the camera spin, which is what reminded me of West Allen because that was a
Yeah.
very momentous, right before the tsunami was about to hit the town. I'm gonna kiss you before I go running off, sort of kiss. I feel like they don't do first kisses a lot, like they do like the momentous What am I trying to say?
Like the ones that are a long time coming that we're like pining for. And
Yes, okay, there we go. I didn't feel like that's another reason why I wish, we had more time because that was the big thing for West Allen, which is they would kiss, right? And it would get erased. But every kiss that they had was momentous. It was a thing like you can remember when they did it. So for Nancy and Ace, they have the we try to break the spell kiss, and they both have that. They both remember it. I'm hoping the next time they kiss, they also get a really well done and shot kiss, and
and
then
I
for it to be a
also
moment.
kind of hope like that their it feels like for Nancy, every time they kiss, it's results in, I want to keep saying trauma, but trauma. And I want their relationship to, yeah, and I know that it will, like that's what we're building toward, like duh, but I want to see it result in something that's not traumatic or results in one of their deaths or has high stakes. I just want, like, I don't know, as a fan of the show and a fan of them individually, I want to see them be happy, which is something I've been saying for many
For a really long
episodes.
time. Before we move to other parts of the episode, though, I have this theory, and it's probably not correct, but I really want to know if Temperance's curse is even real. Like, there's part of me that feels like she's such a sadist that it would be, everything would trigger, right, as if there's a curse, but there actually isn't one, that it's all theater. The breaking of the glass is theater. Not Nancy's heart being erratic like that, that's theater. Like, she doesn't actually intend on killing Ace or her, but she wants Nancy to be in a perpetual state of fight or flight so that she can never be comfortable in her love. And I'm just like, would she do that? I feel like Temperance would do that. I would feel like she would never really kill them. She would just make her think that
Yeah.
they could die.
So she's just like in the underworld, just like getting her laughs and giggles, breaking barometers and making lights explode. How do we find, like, there's got to be like a moth that we can like squish, and then Temperance is,
Yeah.
and then Temperance is no more.
Yeah, like that's why I just feel like either it's her essence is in the moth, or the moth is just carried her last spell, but the spell, it doesn't actually have enough power to kill anybody, just enough power to give you fear.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what's it called? Um, what's it called when you like take a fake pill?
Placebo.
Placebo.
Yeah, there we are. That's the word. Placebo curse.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting if that's the case, because I feel like this curse kind of parallels real life in the sense that you don't actually know how long you're going to have with your partner. You never know. You just assume that you're going to be fine, because why would you dwell on that? But so I would think, is that what she would be doing? Is because the reality is Ace, even if they weren't cursed, could get in a car accident the next day. That's just how life works. So, but she's making them concentrate on it.
Yeah. Yeah. The curse is them being fearful. That could be the curse. I wouldn't put it past her. Yeah.
That was such a Temperance thing today. And the fact that like the curse breaker didn't even work, like there has to be an explanation for that. Is it because there isn't a real curse after all? Maybe she just has a mild curse, which is like messing with them every time they think they're going to get together.
No, and let the moths turn, like the flowers turning into moths. It's like, I'm like, ma'am, do we have your number? Like, I feel like this is not a thing, but it feels like a thing because it has to be. I don't know, but I guess we'll see. But moving to before we move to the case of the week, I have to talk about Miss Jean, because I did love the parallel between Nancy and her dad, and working like the love of your life and not wanting to lose them. I did not like Jean's reaction to him not wanting her to drink out of Kate's cup. She does not need to drink out of Kate's cup. Kate's cup can stay in the cupboard where it belongs. Like, that threw me.
And it felt like it didn't need to turn into a thing of where like Carson needed to change the way he felt about a situation for her. I don't know. I was like I tried to see her perspective where it's like, okay, she should be able to ask for what she wants from her boyfriend or what she needs emotionally. But I'm like, it felt like a lot to ask of him and pressure him. It felt like in the Princess Diaries when Lily says to Mia, your dad died like 2 weeks ago. I thought you were over that. Like, girl. That's what it like seemed like. It wasn't that intense, but I'm like, why are we like forcing Carson to get over this? Like, he shouldn't. That's the mother of his daughter. I don't know. I'm like, just don't drink out of the teacup.
Sometimes you do see that on TV, that like the real powerful stories are started by the silliest of things, and sometimes, I'm not saying it's silly, but sometimes maybe they could have had a stronger catalyst for that, if you know what I mean.
I mean, it helped Carson grow, but I'm like, did he need to join the support group now?
Yeah, like
her?
Right. I mean, I liked, yeah, like he felt like, maybe I do need a support group. Maybe I do need to
Yeah.
talk to people. Like that, love that for him. I hope that he meets some nice people at the widower support group and he finds community. But the fact that it started by the teacup, like that she innocently takes down from the cupboard, yes. And did he react strongly? Sure. But like he then just put the teacup back and went right back into their conversation. She was the one who was like taken aback, like, oh, I can't drink out of Kate's cup. Like, no, you can't. Why do you want to drink out of Kate's antique cup? He said
She's
it was
like, it's
antique.
chipped. We could fix it. It's like, mind your business, one.
It just didn't. I was like, girl, what? Like, what? Like, I thought.
I already like don't really like her. I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna be so real right now. Like, I don't really care for her. But I love Carson. I've come to really love Carson, especially after this episode, because I was like, okay, Scott Wolf, we're doing it. So I'm like, I don't know, Team Carson. I'll stand in front of him any day. Like, he doesn't need to bend anymore. Like, when are you gonna bend, Gene?
because I thought at the table at the claw she was going to expand that it wasn't just a teacup, right? That it's been other moments in their relationship where he seems to freeze up when it comes to Kate, or perhaps she just wants to be able to talk about his wife, and that never came. So then it just becomes about the teacup, and I'm just not there with Eugene. And then him sadly being on the phone, leaving her a message, like with tears in his throat, telling her that he's joined a support group and he just wants her to know that he's going to do what he can so he can fully be with her because he wants to be with her. And I'm like, I don't know, she deserves all this, sir. I don't think she deserves all that.
I loved in the kitchen scene, the teacup scene, where she was like, we never talk about Kate, and he's like, we're talking about her now, and I was like, say it. But I'm like, why? Like, I understand you want to have that level of intimacy with him. You want to be able to like know your boyfriend, your partner, whatever. I don't know what level they're at. And I don't care to know, because you know what? Whatever. But I'm like, why do you want him to talk your ear off about his dead wife? You're not his therapist. I don't know. I'm just going off the deep end. Whatever. I don't know. Happy for them, or sorry that happened. I don't
know. I'm sure they're going to give us follow up on that. And perhaps they'll be able to open it. I need them to, because it just can't stop at the teacup. There needs to be a Z plot where they bring him back up.
Yeah, he needs to find something in her so they can, like, I don't know. There needs to be another conflict, because it can't be all on him because he's still working through grief. I'm like, that seems a little bit unfair. Like, she's got to be lacking in something or not bringing something to the table for him. Why aren't you asking him about his grief, Gene?
It's a question, and if this was a proper, what would come up 2 months later would be that, like, he would find out that she either has, like, a
she was
engaged or boyfriend went missing, and she just, but you didn't talk about this man who disappeared 20 years ago, but I have to open up my heart to you about my wife. She'd be like, well, it was different because I was 17 years old. And you're like,
well, isn't that convenient? We're already mad about something that didn't happen.
Full story planned out.
Oh, but speaking of the story, now's the portion where the taste of the week, which involves a doll. I like that this one connects specifically to the curse plot rather than what's happening with the town. It's a Plugonian doll. I wrote it down, but then I couldn't remember the pronunciation. But it was interesting that we just have a demon-filled doll sitting around in someone's house that we've borrowed so that we can break this curse. We just leaned heavily into the
open the box a little bit, the demon will come out. So why is it so easy to open the damn box?
I don't know, because when Ace set it on the table, it was already askew. I was like, he just placed it. Why is the glass box already?
Yeah, when
open?
he lifted the lid, you could already hear like the of the demon, and Nancy was like, "No." Like, why is there not a lock or like something? I don't know. Not to get into the, it needed to be easy to open for the plot. I get it. I'm here. I'm with you.
It needs a childproof lock too, because the
babies, the children,
they came to, they're like, we want to stop this bully. Which, ladies, we should not be talking about the supernatural among those who do not believe in the supernatural. It ends horribly for everybody. But I love the girlfriends were so sweet, and the fact that they were like, we're gonna go down into the archives and we're gonna find something, and then they did. The demon box just out in the open. I was like, yeah, we're gonna We're gonna
I
open
love
it.
them to pieces, but why are we touching things that don't belong to us?
It felt very appropriate for their age, though.
I
Like,
know.
oh, it's there.
I mean, I grew up hearing you can look but don't touch, like terrified of touching anything in the grocery store. So I'm like, I'm not touching a box with an ancient thing in it. No way.
Especially the book they pulled out, like a spell book, and then they're just like looking for it, and it just immediately goes to what they need. And I was like,
The
ladies,
book
and
of
we're
Hocus
not going to
Pocus.
question. Yeah, and they didn't question it. We don't know what language you're reading in. We're just going to prove to this bully that the supernatural exists, and then accidentally release a demon.
I knew as soon as Bess left the thing on the table because they're like, yeah, leave it here, it'll be fine. And she like looks at it and the camera pans. I'm like, we're not getting what we need this episode. It's gonna be a rough one for us.
Verdi and Jessa are interesting to me because they add another element to Bess's story where it feels like she's going to get what she had wanted in season 3, where she wanted a coven. She wanted to be a part of the ladies in white, women in white, but they weren't really around. Well, now, as an expert of the past, has it been 2 months since she got powers? I feel like she hasn't been around that long with the
Who
magic.
knows?
I don't know. Let's just pretend time doesn't exist.
Okay, well,
It's
she's
safer.
she's a full-on expert. And so now she has these young ladies who she can help teach the craft to. I thought that was a wonderful scene at the end. I'm a little worried for Birdie and Jesse in this instance because we've already seen they do not have impulse control. So we could, once we learn, decide to teach somebody else a lesson, and that could go awry.
Yeah.
I'm going to pop off about Bess again. I really don't mean to, but I'm glad we're going back down to the witchy element, but I hate that the episode put her in the predicament where she had to do the silly thing, which creates the inciting incident again, because Birdie and Jess felt like they were available or free to talk about the supernatural there, and then put Bess in a position where she had to say, oh, the supernatural doesn't exist. And I get that the supernatural should not be in everybody's hands, but we yet again put Bess in a situation where she has to let people down and then spend the rest of the episode making up for it. She did, but why are we still doing that to this character? I just feel like there's more for her than she has to keep redeeming herself or making up for things she did. And she didn't exactly do anything wrong, but why was she put in that position in the first place? If you know what I mean? I feel like I'm ranting about Bess all the time, but we're doing the same thing over and over again with her. I just want it more for her.
Yeah, now she's gonna have a problem with the bully's father, who the fact that he wanted to bring the police into the situation, I'm like, sir, that's your son on the computer looking up what you are uncomfortable with. So therefore, it's talk that you need to have with your child. The police do not need to be involved. Because what is it? Jean walked off saying that there's a parent complaining that there's child endangerment going on at Historical Society. What is the endangering thing? He did not trespass downstairs. He did end up cursed, but that was because of the girls, and that was off property, and they were not sanctioned to have that demon doll. And other than that, this is a personal home conversation. Part of me feels like we might get a plot about censorship in Nancy Drew season 4, and I just feel like I don't know if we need that this season. There's something very much giving parent council coming to the local historical society, which would be their placement for a library, telling them what they can and cannot have on the shelves. I do not want that.
I kind of giving witch trials too. They're burning all the witches, even if you aren't one, to quote Taylor Swift.
I feel like this show or the season is definitely starting to bring in the idea of will everyone else find out the supernatural exists, because we have everyone is drawn into the water storyline because everyone's in danger. We have all these random supernatural situations going on with bodies rising. We had that scene in the town council where that man was spreading conspiracy theories about the dead rising, which we know aren't conspiracy theories. We have this man up in Bess's office giving off to her that she works with the supernatural and that it's all folklore and not real, when we know that it is. And now the Drew crew is going to have to save the town from whatever this unusual actual subtle evil that could affect everyone else. I do wonder if other people are going to find out that the supernatural is real, and that's what the season's building towards. Because
like, how do you not know though?
Exactly, right? Like, how many people has Nancy Drew saved? You know what I mean?
I was under the impression most in her shoot, but I do know that it's real because there's just, I mean, all the traditions are ghostly in some manner. There's always something weird going on.
The man, I don't know, the bully's father, he made it seem like it was all just like stories, myths, like what do they call them? Legends. I don't know. Like it was just like stuff people said locally that's not true. But I don't know how you. I guess it's one thing to like see weird things happening. It's another to believe it. Because he did pop off about Santa Claus. I'm like, leave Santa Claus out of it.
It was such a weird comment to make. It's not even like the same. But I don't know. I guess if we do this plot, it'll be like a thing on censorship and potentially religious freedom. And I don't know what else. Unless they're just gonna completely run through this and because he's gonna tell the chief, right? Well, she saw bodies come to life.
She saw it, so I'm like, I don't know if that's not your ally quite yet. But she hasn't been around for the past 2 episodes, so
I have not missed her. But like
it's been a nice break from the law enforcement in Horseshoe Bay, I will say that.
Yeah. They'll park. You're welcome to come back at any time. I do miss you. Do not miss Chief. But to go back to the man during the council meeting who did, was popping up about conspiracy theories, but it was actually accurate. I think it's interesting that Nick is like the man of the town. Like Nick that's his position.
President.
Yeah.
Yes. He's so calm and collected.
Yeah, it's like I'm watching this unfold because like in the episode I'm kind of like Nick hasn't really had much to do this season yet, and then when I'm watching this at the scene where they're in a town hall meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what that was?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a leader. He's always been like, even though Nancy's like the head of the pack, he's always been like the dad, the leader, he's been that, and it's a natural progression for his character, and I really like this direction for him to be like an authority in this town, like a leader, and he's always kind of taken on that role of like being somebody that is a voice of reason, that like is fights for what is right in this town. And it's not like, I hate to see him constantly put in this position where he has to explain things and educate people, but I'm like, who better? Like, he is such a natural born leader, and it's a perfect character arc for him to come to this place where he's constantly doubting himself. He doesn't see himself in this light, and then he just comes into it naturally from the experiences with his friends and the hard reckoning he's done with excavating his past and dealing with that. I love it for him.
It's fantastic. He even arrived to the meeting with the knowledge. It was like he was talking to George about the water contamination, but he came in with the studies. He's like, I had a contact from the town over who's willing to like, they're going to give us their water for the day. It's a 24-hour process. No one's even going to notice it, not even going to fill it. And I was like, look at him. We didn't just arrive to the table with our opinion. We arrived to the table with facts and figures and solutions. Exactly what you want to happen. And Brie shut him down. I also didn't like, I was like, we don't understand water contamination, because she held the water up and she's like, and I think she drank it, and then she was like, oh, it seems fine to me. I was like, ma'am, that's not how that works. You don't have to see what's in the water in order for it to be contaminated.
I think that actress was in Superman at Lois, working in the mines, and she had the same energy.
She looked familiar. Yeah. And I was like, what? I'm getting vibes. Why did I not like your character in the past?
I think that was that poor woman who ended up having her neck snapped by Bizarro Superman, and she was giving the same kind of energy, an ally, here to help. And then when they got into the nitty gritty, you're like, actually, there's more to you. You're not that good of a person in the first place. And so with her, it was all about appearance. She was all for snapping the selfie with Nick because supporting a small business owner, but she wasn't for listening to what he had to say. She was happy for him to be on the council and to listen to his ideas, but not really listen to them because it was good for the public persona. And that's why I think this is a good arc for Nick, because he was persecuted by this town in season one. He was never allowed to let go of his past. And now he could end up coming full circle by him being a voice on the council that can actually change things. And it seems like the council aren't in the business of changing things. They're all there for appearance. So it's pretty cool that if Nick ends up being on the council as a reluctant member who doesn't want to be there, but ultimately becomes the one who creates real change in the town, all for that. We said throughout the course of the show how he's created change. And I know he's had to stop and educate people who wouldn't bother listening, but that's where his talent is. So if he gets to bring Horseshoe Bay into a new era of more open-minded people that actually accomplish real change, I think that's a perfect way to end Nick's arc.
I was
And I
excited
really
to see this actress.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the
Her name's Kat. I interviewed her, and I'd asked was she going to be back on CW again, and she said she hopes so, because she is from Canada, and so she's been on a few CW shows, and lo and behold, Nancy Drew season 4.
Yeah, good she is. I was gonna say I really liked George pushing Nick to do it, because I think he has that natural reaction, kind of like me. I kind of relate to this, where it's like you're presented with an opportunity and your immediate reaction is like, I couldn't do that. That's not for me.
Yeah.
Like I'm not qualified for that. But George was like, no, you're doing it. you're the right one for this. And she was so gleeful. And it just spoke to their I think it spoke to their arc as a couple and a friendship, and even seeing George in a much more confident place professionally. And I appreciated the visual juxtaposition of George in her professional attire, and then later on she looks like George again. She's got like her space bun situation up in her bob. I love the duality of George now. Even was it Jessie that made a comment about what she was wearing early on or something? I don't know. I just like I love the parallel journey that they're on, that took at first it took them apart, but now it's like bringing them together in a way where we can see the growth in both of them, and they're still, even though they're not together, George is taking what she's learned and pushing Nick in a direction that will be, I think, beneficial to himself and everybody.
And that's not even the part that he wanted boundaries on. Like, he doesn't mind that she's pushing him to, be more involved in town. I liked his speech to her about how when you break up with someone, you're allowed to have time to yourself. And he's like, we're co-owners of this business, and we're co-parenting your sisters. Like, I need like some space somewhere. And so he can't, I guess she has to respect that. Like, if you ask me to talk to your sister about something, I will do that. But you can't come back to me and have a problem with what I said if what I said wasn't really an issue. I think them navigating post-breakup, which feels like it's not going to be post-breakup for that long, with the way that they seem to keep getting paired together, is good, because it allows George to see, I took this break, and I think she's realizing how much their life is entwined and how much she wants it to continue to be entwined. They do pretty much act like America. They're in each other's pocket all the time. There is no break from each other. And I don't think they really want one, but I think she needed that talk for her to get that, like, hey, if we're going to keep doing this thing, perhaps I should be more open about, perhaps I do want to be with Nick before things get serious with Jade. And we may not see Jade. They might be done with their arc. I don't know if this is one of those things where the character goes on a date and you never see that date again.
Or it just takes a couple episodes, because we didn't hear about Addie this week either.
True. That is Bess's girlfriend, though, which would be different from Jade. But Jade would be Nick's significant other, but they've only been on one date, so
yeah. But were they even mentioned?
I don't think so.
Because like if you just watched this episode, you wouldn't know that Nick was involved with somebody, kind of, or that Bess was either. Not that either thing was important to the plot, but.
True. But I feel like if we were to hear about Jade again, George would bring them up, because George was involved in that too, in that storyline as well. I feel like for fans who are like, I don't think the fans are worried about them, but if you are, you shouldn't be, because even episode 4, the synopsis has them paired again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end, I don't know her name or what she did, but
Bree.
yes. She's in her bathtub drinking her drink, and then she has the vein situation, which reminds me that doesn't kill them, right? That just makes like there's the thing inside them that influences them,
Yeah, it
but
changes them.
but it can kill them.
I think so. Judge Abbott, I think, had a heart attack because his memories came back of something horrible that he had done, and he was trying to destroy the file. He might have just been a specific case, or it might be about how much water you do ingest. I'm not sure. Nancy just became bro Nancy, so I don't have no idea like what's going to happen with Bree or why the water affects people differently.
Interesting.
We didn't get progress on the sludge though, as far as like what it's going on.
Yeah, it was very like we're putting that to the side to deal with Nancy and Ace, which was fine.
I do wonder if this is. I did suggest maybe this last week that the sludge has different side effects in everybody. So, like Reed just mentioned, we had Bro Nancy, we had what was the other one? The bodies. We had as you said, Sabrina, the judge had the heart attack. But like, and now that it's in the water, and clearly it's having a different impact on Bray. Did she see something? Did it make her feel something? I wonder if now is that it's in the water, it's going to start affecting loads of people all over time. You know the way, like in the Flash, the particle accelerator created metas of the week. Now the
Me nodding like I know what you mean.
I mean, you did watch some of the first season, but like that created the metas of the week. So like maybe the sludge will create each adventure of the week going forward. Because I do think we are going to pare back on the character stuff, like the Nest stuff, for a little while and get more into the nitty gritty. Like, didn't one of you said that the Spider episode is a standalone episode? It might not tie into the main story. Is that related to the sludge? So I do think this is a good overarching arc for the season that will also give us some of those standalone Nancy Drew episodes that we like.
I'm excited to see what they do with Bray because this actress works a lot in supernatural dramas. So like what exactly are they going to be doing? Because she was a metahuman in The Flash. And in Motherland Fort Salem, she was a witch. A very, very powerful weather witch. So I'm like, but where's budget? It depends on what the budget is for these episodes. But like, will she be doing something crazy or will it be like Bree's entire personality switches? As a episode 4, spoiler, it's not really a spoiler if you read the synopsis, she doesn't make it to meetings that she set up with George and Nick. 2 separate meetings.
Okay.
So
she's voted out and Nick takes her position.
I would love that. I mean, I feel like this is it's his journey to being the mayor. I feel like we're on the road. The campaign will be at the end of the season, and I will be casting my vote in my heart.
Yeah,
we're making buttons, flyers. We're campaigning.
Yes, Bess would be his campaign manager because she's fabulous at that.
Yes,
manifesting it. Do we have time? No, but still manifesting.
Did we leave anything out? I feel like we touched everything.
Yeah, I think that is everything. I guess just to a personal note, loved the big giant TV and the VHS tape moment. Just adored it.
Nostalgic.
Very nostalgic. I want to kind of see it again. I do like this part of Bess's arc, which is she is really doing what she can to make the Historical Society an integral part of the community.
Yeah, I like it.
Love that for Bess. I think that's it. I really don't think there is anything else. So let me just like get the green table out of the closet and push it on.
Dust it off
right
there.
Up here. Like let's wipe it down.
Grab a chair. Everyone, are we in?
Rounds. Grab a drink if you need it.
So we wanted to have a green table talk, which if you're unfamiliar, because I feel like we haven't had one in a while, is when we gather everybody around, we have a serious chat, and we have a, green table talk. So there's been this thing that's happening every week because Nancy, relatively, for the past 2 weeks, and I'm sure the episode 3 that we just talked about, the ratings have been relatively great for this network, and I think they've grown since season 3. Michael, I know you're our ratings guy.
Yes, I believe the second episode of season 4 was the most watched one since the season 2 finale. So we've grown significantly for season 4. Yes.
So every time the ratings drop, everyone's like, "Save Nancy! There could be a season 5," and I understand that inclination to see the show getting great ratings, and you're like, "Why is it ending?" However, Nancy Drew's not going to be saved. And there are multiple reasons, such as this is the final season. They wrote a series finale. Another reason, the cast options have ended. They're no longer attached to the series. So if there were any world in which these numbers were used as evidence of them shopping it somewhere else or renewing it, that process, I think, would create more logistical headaches than necessary. So I know that sounds very like doomsday, like, why are you raining on my parade? I understand. I get it. I'm with you. But if we're going to campaign for a continuation of the show, here's what I'm proposing, and everyone, gather closely. We should pitch follow-up movie series. That is doable. They can take 2 months, a month out of the summer from whatever jobs they go on to and film a sweet, cute little movie in the summer. Standalone mystery that continues their personal journeys. We can see Nace in action. Maybe Tom Swift shows up in one. There's a blueprint for this that's better than re-greenlighting a whole show, which takes contracts months out of the year. We would, as evident at the top of the episode, we probably wouldn't get everybody back.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a mess. It's easier for movies. I bring this up a lot. Psych.
Mm-hmm.
They've done like 3 movies since it got canceled, and I don't think they're stopping. I'm like, that's perfect. We just need like Nancy Drew and the something, and we get a fun summer movie. How exciting would that be? So while I'm squashing the hashtag save Nancy Drew, hashtag renew Nancy Drew campaign, I think we flip it and reverse it. And we fight for movies in the future. Like, imagine if Veronica Mars, they did that one movie and they were like, ooh, we should make a new series. Imagine if they just kept making movies. I think that would have been a better track for it. So, like we said at the top, we don't always know what we're asking for. I think we have a little bit more control of what we're asking for from a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just seems like a better option. Anybody out there? Drew crew, what do we think?
Well, okay, so especially for the book fans, right? A movie is the better move to get beloved stories adapted. Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head right now, but like if they ever want to do like, or even some of the adaptations of the games, Nancy Drew in the Haunted Mansion, Nancy Drew in the Haunted Carousel. We could be on camps, we can go to ranches, we can do like a whole bunch of different things in an easier capacity. I mean, everyone on shows because that's what they're used to for TV, but Lifetime and Hallmark are thriving on movies, low budget movies that they're churning out. And they're series, and people do love them. Like, they have mystery film series that people tune into every year, and they're waiting around to see like what the next one is going to be. Would love it if we did that with Nancy. I think it would do well.
And there's less, like, when you're making a series, you need constant conflict to fit 13 hours.
Yeah.
Like, if they were to ever come back, and I'm not saying maybe someday in the future, if the show becomes like a cult hit and they come back for like a revival, that would be incredible. But like, you have to have conflict. You would have to, like, just watching Nace be in a relationship happy would be slightly boring. So there needs to be conflict there. So like, if we come back and they're broken up, we didn't get what we really wanted, and then we're just watching them get back together again. Or that's just an example, you know what I mean? But like in a movie, it requires less breaking down of like, and relying on the character struggles, where they can have like a mystery and there can still be an underlying conflict within the characters. But because it'll just be like an hour and a half, 2-hour journey, it's not 13 weeks of, oh God, we need to find story for these characters and like undo things and just do an upheaval. Like, that's why a major character died at the end of the first season of the Veronica Mars revival. Like, we don't want that. We just want fun times and be with these characters again. And within movies, I think we have a better chance of progressing them forward in like positive ways. A Fanson wedding, I don't know, maybe Bess gets married, something like that, like happy times where there's also like curses and mysteries and no more curses, I take that back. like just more fun times. And I think we even pitched that for Tom Swift too, like follow-up movies, like where it's just like a standalone case that also has less reliance on um, serialized storytelling.
Yeah. And
That's my
yeah,
pitch.
and I think it's a brilliant pitch because honestly, next we know what we don't really know what Next Star want from the CW, but we know what they don't want, and that's the CW. Anything CW-ish related, like Nancy or whatever, is on its way out. And it's incredible that it got this final season. So I just want people to be able to sit and enjoy it and not get their hopes up when that it's not even the fact that the show was just cancelled. That decision was made. They prepared for it. They wrote for it. The show is ending. There's no point in hoping for something that's never going to come. But I do think if you have a TV movie, that puts it back in the hands of the studio. I honestly don't think it would be on the CW if it was, but I'm sure there would be some network out there willing to show a series of Nancy Drew movies across
I
a
mean,
period of time.
yeah, whether it's Paramount Plus or whether the CW is like, yeah, we'll air it.
Yeah.
We'll air it in the summer. Like that would be fun. I don't know. I think there would be and could be a demand for it. And I think there's also a larger conversation about like where the show will go when it ends, because I would love for more people to see this show so that the the case to be made for continuing it in some form, be it movies, would increase. Because like right now we're just like, okay, they're gonna put it on HBO Max, and that's not as like wide of an audience as Netflix because it's not global, really. So I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we're shouting into the void with this. But that's a bigger conversation about streaming services and like
We do
that
have an
nonsense.
example though, like the Teen Wolf movie literally came out this year,
Yeah.
and that was a beloved series that sustained its fan base for so long that a movie did get greenlit, and it won. I was not on MTV; it was on Paramount Plus,
Yeah.
and people got to reunite with these characters, and there was some retconning like to bring a character back, and it allowed, like, if they want to move forward with a rival series, if Paramount Plus is up to it, they have that opportunity. I don't necessarily, we're at a point with Nancy where it hasn't been long enough to have a rival series if they have a movie in 2 years, but like a series, revival series, if they have a movie in 2 years. But having a movie would be great. I just feel like, and it doesn't even have to continue the show in that sense that it picks up from where season 4 ends. They could do anything with it. We could be years ahead. We could do a prequel. We could do of some kind. Prequel being like right out, like right for season 1, not all the way back in high school. We're going to be stretching that age thing too far for these actors. But like they really have a wealth of directions they can go into because of the source material and because of what they've already put in their own seasons. It would be great. And the CW is open to doing movies. I believe Brad had said something about that, and they were talking about how they've been speaking with Blumhouse to do low cost horror movies. And it would be a great low cost horror movie, and Nace Drew horror.
Right.
It is. And I also want to stress too to fans that these things are not immediate. Like you said, Teen Wolf, that's what, 10 years later? Almost 10 years later? Probably less after since it ended, but like these it's probably not as immediate. I think Psych was like it ended, and then like a year later they're like, we should do a movie. And I was like, that's quick, but do your thing. But like it's these things move so slowly that it could be in the future. And another point that I want to make, even about Gotham Knights, just because these shows are ending doesn't mean they need to end for you. Like they still exist. Keep them alive. Like that's why there are so many shows from years ago that had one season that we're still talking about today, because people love them. They grew over time. They're cult favorites. And that doesn't always mean they need to come back, but they're still alive and special to people. And I think that's something I constantly want to stress to people, that it's sad that Nancy is ending, but it had 4 incredible seasons that like we get to relive now. And as much as we would want to see it continue, it's bittersweet, but we get to like continue to live with this and constantly rediscover it and bring it to other people, and hopefully it grows over time. And it's the same thing with Gotham Knights. It's one season, but that doesn't mean in 10 years time it's not going to be on a canceled too soon list or whatever. Like these shows can stay alive, even though it seems like there's twice the amount of shows these days, so there's twice the amount of things fighting for our attention in these ways. But if you love something, it doesn't need to end, even if it ends. That
Mhm.
makes no sense, but somebody parse meaning out of it.
No, I thought that was quite beautifully said, very poetic.
Just
I
because
just
it's over doesn't mean it's really over.
Yeah.
As the poet Katy Perry once said.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
No, but it's very much true because when we think about pop culture, and we had this discussion before about how because we have so much content, things aren't really becoming classics anymore. They're coming and they're going. But when we think about movies that we grew up with, uh, what year are we on for Mean Girls? And that's a movie, and that's been like a new generations are picking that movie
We've
up
got a
and falling in
Broadway
love with
show.
it.
We've got a movie that's probably going to be turned into a series. Like things happen years after, and we want it now. But I think for now we just gotta follow Kennedy and Co. to their next endeavors and hope that somehow the roads lead back to Horseshoe Bay at some point in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Spread the word of Nancy.
Yeah.
It thus concludes this Green Table Talk. Thank you for coming.
Yes. That was fantastic. It's such a hopeful way to end to be watching a movie.
I mean, it's not the news we want to hear, but like you can turn the bad stuff into something uplifting.
Yeah. And with that, I guess what would the hashtag be? Hashtag Nancy Drew movie.
Hashtag Nace the movie.
We like to do things full circle here.
Y'all think. Okay, well, that is the end of this very Nace heavy pod episode. Which, I mean, it's what they do, right? I mean, they're like one of the best things on Nancy Drew. But thank you guys for listening or watching. We're the CW Spiral. I'm Sabrina.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Reed.
Bye, y'all.